Good evening. Now, hey Nicola, hey Sean.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Judith, evening, Brita. Cool. Everyone's coming on. Super stuff. Who else have we got? David, good evening. Maria, Ruth, how are we? Ursula, good evening. Marianne, how are you? Trisha, good evening.
Hi John, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Actually, I tell a lie. I have a bit of a dicky tummy, so if you have to lay it out during this, you'll understand why.
Oh, lovely.
Little nauseous at the moment, but I'm okay. Who else we got? Evening, Karen. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
Good, thanks. Susan.
Hi, Karen. Hello.
No accidents since Saturday, Karen. No.
No, accident free.
That's good. That's good. Excellent. Good stuff. Lovely. So what I want to do first of all, guys, is just go through a bit about fasting for those of you that mightn't have done it before, and just a recap for other people as well. So I'm just going to mute everybody. But if you do have questions, you can unmute yourself. And you can also use the chat box to ask questions, or you can just start waving on the screen and I'll see you. So yeah, I just want to go through. How do I do this? I think I know by now how to work Zoom properly. Yeah. Perfect. Okay, so just to kind of go over fasting a little bit, just the benefits of fasting again is there's obviously the idea of you're eating less food. And I want to go through something like that as a kind of reason why kind of fasting can work well for some people and not work for other people in terms of just results wise and kind of burning fat and stuff like that. But also then there's benefits. One of the main benefits is a term called autophagy, which is the easiest way to explain it is like it's spring cleaning for inside your body. So essentially when we're digesting food, your body is working on all of that. It's a very metabolic kind of high energy process for the body. And when we stop digesting the food, the body can then actually get to work on repairing, recovering, regeneration, and things like that. As you go into kind of deeper into a fast, that autophagy process essentially takes place. So essentially, you've got things like your white blood cells go around. Kind of mopping up, bacteria and stuff like that in your body. It's actually, I should share this with you. Maybe I've shared it with some people a few years ago, but you can like looking at blood under the microscope and you can see white blood cells. It literally looks like Pac-Man. White blood cells going around, and these little black things going around your blood, and like they're literally just gobbling them up and stuff like that. I must share it with you. I think it's fascinating, but as I said, it's literally like Pac-Man. Your white blood cells going around, keeping your body healthy and well. There's also a huge amount. There's a lot of research kind of in terms of anti-aging, as well as kind of going into caloric restriction and how kind of beneficial it is, because obviously if we're spring cleaning and everything like that, there's less kind of wear internally within our cells and stuff like that. So yeah, it's also, again, for a lot of people find that actually their energy levels can kind of go up quite high through it. But let's say just to go through the general gist of kind of how to go about it, essentially what we're kind of doing on Saturday is try to get a 16-hour gap or more if you can. Some people can kind of push it a little bit more from eating your last meal to eating your first. Ignore tomorrow. That's obviously tomorrow's email that you're going to see that written in. So essentially on Friday evening, you'd stop eating your last meal, and then you're going to kind of roughly not eat until lunchtime on Saturday. Now, try to drink plenty of fluids on Saturday morning, kind of, as you're going through it, and avoid all calories, which basically means like herbal teas, black tea, coffee, water, they're all okay. But anything with milk or, kind of calories essentially in it is would be out. I can't stress this highly enough, is do plan your meal to break your fast and keep it a normal size. It's not meant to be a feast. It's not meant to be, oh, I haven't eaten in the last 16 hours. I need to eat loads now. The idea is just to get a normal size meal and that kind of thing. And one of the great things about fasting as well is that it gets you okay with feeling hungry, which if we want to lose fat, there's going to be certain points where we are going to be hungry, and it's a normal process. You're in a calorie deficit. You're not putting in enough fuel to meet the demands that your body is putting out. And sometimes, I'm not saying it has to be all the time, but sometimes your hunger will be there. And the more okay you are with feeling hungry, the more you know that this will pass, and the easier it is to kind of endure cravings and hunger and stuff like that as well. That you're not going to die of starvation or kind of miss out on anything. And then the last thing as well is do eat starchy carbs after the fast as well. So if you're having, let's say, a lunch and a dinner on Saturday, have some starchy carbs in both of those, because we've done low carb for Thursday and Friday on the challenge. Now, here's an example, let's say, is like if somebody snacks in the evening time, so they have their dinner at 6 o'clock or something like that, but 8, 9 o'clock, they're eating kind of foods and they're peckish and they're kind of in that kind of routine and habit of, some people call it boredom eating or whatever like that. But if they're doing evening snacking plus their breakfast, that's probably at least 500 calories that the fast would basically eliminate because you're not eating it. The evening snack could be 200 or 300 calories. Breakfast could be similar. It could be more, as I said, it could be even a good bit more than 500 calories. But let's say if we use 500 calories, if you times that by 7, let's say if you did this over the course of a week, every day, you would basically save 3,500 calories, which is the equivalent of 1 pound of fat. So that's someone who could do intermittent fasting, not necessarily change what they're eating, just essentially change kind of how much by doing this, and they'll lose fat on a regular basis going through this. To kind of give you a kind of a look at another side, if somebody's not really eating snacking or doesn't eat a huge amount and doesn't really eat a big breakfast, it's kind of like a slice of toast or something like that and some orange juice was their breakfast, maybe 200 calories, but that you do that by 7 and it's only 1,400 calories a week and it's less than half a pound of fat. So this is where, let's say, the 21-day blitz kind of helps you figure out what's best for you and what works best for you. So for this second person, kind of fasting from 6 p.m. is probably irrelevant because they already do it until breakfast the next day. So they're only skipping a sun, they're having a small breakfast. So they could change the fasting around and actually skip lunch or skip dinner or something like that, where they're eating more of their calories. But that's just to kind of give you an example of two different people and how fasting would work well for one and not so well for another, basically based on their current lifestyle. And as I said, with the 21 days is you'll try different things and certain things will work well and other things won't work well, and you figure out the kind of best way that kind of works for you. So if you do have any specific questions on the fasting, do let me know, and I'll kind of get to them afterwards as we're going through it. So I want to kind of share this with you in terms of, obviously, as we're getting into kind of, this kind of, 8 weeks and beyond, or 9 weeks of lockdown or whatever, a lot of people have been saying kind of, motivation is starting to kind of wane and dip, and obviously, we're not meant to be, doing times like this is tough. But what's working for me, and I just kind of thought I would share it, is that I've set myself a kind of a big goal to kind of, in terms of my body, my physique, as I've never done it before. I've never actually weighed 100 kilos before. So I've set myself a goal to weigh 100 kilos with a caveat of being under 15% body fat by the March the 1st. So I want to obviously, I'm adding on muscle, not just eating tubs of Ben and Jerry's and sitting at home, not doing anything. But I've never actually weighed 100 kilos ever before. So it's, again, kind of something that kind of motivates me and kind of spurs me to kind of do it. But that's not just my goal. That's kind of, let's say, first phase. Second phase then is to weigh 95 kilos at about 10% body fat by June 1st. Again, I've never been that lean at that weight before. So again, essentially, I want to be, kind of starting to get into the best shape I've ever been in. And that will give me from March the 1st about 13 weeks to lose roughly 5 kilos of fat. The reason I picked June the 1st is I'm getting married on June the 6th. And I've decided no matter what, I'm just going to get married. So whether it's 6 people or whatever, we'll just go for it. It's very hard to organize a wedding when you don't know how many people to invite, or you invite people with the caveat of I might have to uninvite you closer to the time. So then I'm turning 40 on July the 29th this year. So I'm going to go for a photo shoot for that. And done one photo shoot in my life before. That was 5 or 6 years ago. And I want to be under 8% body fat for that. Again, kind of maintaining about that 95 kilo mark. So there's my kind of, let's say, big, it's a 6 month, 7 month goal that I'm kind of working towards, but I've broken it down into kind of chunks, or smaller milestones, so that I've got, it's closer. Do you know what I mean? March the 1st is only a week away, that I've been working towards for the last 8 or 9 weeks. And then I've got 13 weeks from that till June. And then I've got 2 months essentially from June until my 40th. So currently I'm up to 99.3 kilos and I'm at 13.8% body fat. So I'm on course. I'm kind of very close to that. That's in the morning time. Thank you, Judith. In the evening time, I do step on the scales and I do weigh 100 kilos in the evening, but that's not my goal. My goal is to weigh 100 kilos in the morning, which is very, very different for me, especially the amount of muscle that I'm putting on and stuff like that, the amount of water I can retain. I've spoken about this, about carbohydrates and stuff like that, and a lot of the other things before, that my weight will fluctuate by 2 or 3 kilos during the day just from water weight, carbohydrate weight. So again, it's being specific that I have to get it in the morning. Now, the first thing kind of when you're setting goals and stuff like that is you need big enough whys. You need things that you're kind of, okay, there's a good damn reason to do this. Because without the big why, you're kind of like, nah. There's nothing to be motivated towards really. So I've never done it before. It's a big challenge, and therefore for me it'll be a big achievement to do it. That's an intrinsic reward. It's like it's internal, just that kind of fact of that I've finally done it. I joined the gym 20 years ago. I weighed about 75 kilos. So I've kind of gained muscle over the years and kind of worked towards it, but I never actually thought maybe that getting to 100 kilos for me was actually possible, until kind of recently, and I'll kind of go through that in a minute. The other kind of big thing is giving me something to focus on. It gives me a kind of something to work towards and an extra purpose to my day and my week. Do you know what I mean? That like, it's I have something to do, to think about, to occupy my mind, that I've got a purpose to my weeks and my days, that I'm not just going through the motions. And that's a kind of big thing that having this is just, again, it's just mentally for my mental health and stuff like that. I find it been very, very good to actually set these goals and kind of be pushing and working towards them. Like I said, I didn't know it was even possible to do, and then obviously I'm going to feel good, I'm going to look great for my wedding and for the 40th, and I'll be strong and fit to play with Logan, which kind of longevity is not just, I'm kind of doing this as well with even longer term approaches, is that obviously for my 40th, I want to kind of start my 40s in the best shape of my life and then continue that towards my 40s, towards my 50s, 60s and so on, and kind of keep my kind of fitness and kind of health, and that kind of goes into how strong I feel and what my body can do and function and stuff like that as well. So I'm going to kind of roughly run through my thinking behind how I've laid it out. Now, obviously this is going into muscle building for phase 1, but phase 2 is going to be going into fat loss for me. So again, kind of that will be probably a little bit more applicable to you guys. But again, just how I kind of break things down. So at the start of January, I was 95.6 kilos and 12.3% body fat. So I needed to kind of gain an average of 1 to 2 pounds a week over the essentially 8 weeks, January to March, in order to achieve the goal. So essentially it would be kind of bang smack in the middle of there, roughly kind of 4.5 kilos to put on. So the 1 to 2 pounds per week isn't just a number I plucked from my head. It's basically, if you want to kind of gain muscle with minimal fat, essentially to gain muscle, you must, for me, I've been training for 20 years, I have to be in a calorie surplus. To do so. I can't gain I'm going to gain some fat while I'm doing it, but I don't want to gain too much fat. So if I'm gaining more than kind of 2 pounds a week, I'm probably more than likely eating too much and gaining fat, too much fat at the same time. I'm, kind of part and parcel of this. I'm going to be in a surplus and I have gained fat, but not too much. Obviously lift weights, that's an important, but to have a program and to increase, again, to kind of have a purpose for my training sessions. Again, this is all kind of breaking down big goals into what am I doing on a daily basis. I must increase my reps and weights, every session until I can't make further progress. And essentially that, by doing that, I know my muscles are being adequately challenged to grow, essentially, with the program that I'm doing. Now, just with the program that I'm doing, I'm trying to get to about 20 sets per body part. So for example, and I kind of break this down kind of simply enough, I'm doing like, let's say if I was doing squats or something, squats are mainly a thigh exercise, right? So in order for me to stimulate enough of my thighs to grow, I need to do 20 sets a week on my thighs. So if you imagine you do like 3 sets of 10 or whatever like that of a squat on a Monday, and then again on a Friday or something like that, that's 6. Now for me, in order to, with my training history and stuff like that, the more advanced you become, the longer you've been training, the more sets you need to do per week, essentially, to add on. So it's a lot of volume and sets. And the reason why I'm saying this is because just increasing your weights or reps every session doesn't necessarily guarantee you're going to, add on as much muscle as I have. So, and a lot of people think that lifting weights is, kind of, you just look at a weight and you're going to add on 5 pounds of muscle, but you need lots and lots of what's called volume, lots and lots of sets of doing that, as well as kind of increasing the reps and the weights. The reason I put this in minimal arm work, because a lot of people would think it's like, oh, you want big biceps and stuff like that. Is like, in order for me to put on a pound, like if I put on a pound of my bicep, it will come out to here. Like you can imagine like a steak, a 500-gram steak or something like that, a pound of muscle. That's a huge amount of weight. So I'm not going to put on a pound of muscle on my bicep. It's just, I'm going to put on maybe 100 grams of muscle on my bicep. So it's wasting my time focusing on the wrong areas of my body. If I want to put on enough weight, it's got to be my legs, my thighs, my backside, my back, my chest, shoulders, the bigger muscles, the ones that are going to actually, if I am going to put on a pound of muscle on those areas. And the reason I say that is because a lot of people will focus on, oh, I want a flat stomach, so I'm going to kind of, do lots of core exercises. I'm going to spend 15 minutes on my core or something like that. And you're like, those muscles are so small, they don't burn a lot of calories when you're doing those exercises. So again, it's kind of like wasting time doing stuff that's not going to give you the biggest return on your investment of time. Core work is important, but we do, a small amount of it to give us enough stimulus, and we get the benefits from it, but not so much that we're getting that we're wasting time. Kind of 15 minutes could be much better off spent on kind of doing some interval training, or your kind of bigger muscles and stuff like that, if that makes sense. So again, that's why I kind of threw that in as well. And it's actually hard for me to do minimal arm work as well. It's like I want to dry my arms and stuff like that, but I'll get to that as I'm going through the kind of fat loss phase as well. I've got to eat a lot, and I've got to monitor my weight and body fat. Here's great at doing this. Hang on, let me give you 2 seconds. Unmute yourself. It must be Logan. That's the 2nd week in a row he's coming in unmuted himself. He's not a happy camper tonight. Don't know what's wrong with him. So where are we going? Go back to present. Where are we? So yeah, so monitoring it and adjusting it as needed, and I need to eat a lot. So I'm kind of eating about 3,500 calories a day at the moment. I've dropped it slightly in the last kind of 2 weeks, and it's kind of working well. Sleep and recovery, really, really important, because if I don't, essentially you stimulate your muscles to grow, or any sort of exercise is a stimulus, but it's actually the changes happen, the adaptation happens outside of exercise. So if we just tested all of ourselves after we do, kind of got a muscle biopsies or whatever, and tested ourselves after we've done an exercise session, nobody would tell you to exercise because, you know, people looking at it, the doctors and scientists looking at it, go, hang on, you've just completely broken down your muscles. You've got all this inflammation in the body. You've got blah, blah, blah. This is terrible for you. But it's the knock-on effects after that. If you're going to measure 24, 48 hours after exercise, you're like, oh, wow, your immune system has been boosted. Your muscles are actually starting to grow back a little bit stronger than the last time, and, you know, so on and so forth. So that's why sleep and recovery, they're the actual times when I'm actually growing and putting on muscle. So I've got to really kind of nail down them. And then also to look after my joints with mobility work, because I'm doing a lot of repetitions and sets. I have to make sure that kind of I feel good while I'm doing it, that I don't want to feel beaten up or whatever. And then going through the fat loss kind of phase. So again, kind of in order to hold on to as much muscle as possible, I mean, the average body fat percentage loss per week is about 0.25 to 0.5% per week. So if I do that over 12 weeks, that's 3 to 6%. So again, you know, kind of I'm about 14% body fat now. So if I can lose 4% of my body fat, I'll get down to 10% and hopefully be at 95 kilos. I want to kind of keep building / maintaining as much muscle as possible during this phase. You know, so as I said, I can kind of not just, you know, kind of, you know, drop down to kind of below 95 kilos. And the simplest way, the easiest way for me to do this is to reduce my meals. I'm eating about 5 or 6 meals a day at the moment. So I'm going to reduce that down to 4. And that's going to give me a roughly, you know, kind of a meal and a half less a day. So about 700 to 1,000 calories a day. Now, that means if I'm in a surplus at the moment. So what that means is that I'll probably be in close to a 500 calorie deficit by doing that. So basically you've got this kind of middle line, whereas maintenance, I'm above that at the moment. So I'm not going to basically be in a 1,000 calorie deficit. If I cut 1,000 calories out of my diet, I'm going to be roughly in a 500 calorie deficit because I'm in that surplus at the moment, if that makes sense. So I'm going to do the same training for as long as I can until my body kind of tells me that I'm not. Essentially what's going to happen as I lose more and more fat, it's going to get harder and harder and harder to do it. So I'll add in some more cardio then, you know, as I kind of start to hit things. Actually, Ruth was asking me today as well about should she be doing more exercise this time around on the 21-day blitz. And she said to herself, she answered her own question, was like, well, no, because I'm still losing weight. So the thing is, if you do too much too soon, you've got absolutely nowhere to, you know, if you try and do everything all at once, you've got nowhere to turn to when you hit plateaus and stuff like that. So it's important to kind of have this kind of journey, you know, where you can keep adding in and tweaking and adjusting stuff as you're going along. I'll probably have to, come mid-April, start to track calories. Very easy for me at the moment to start losing fat because I'm eating so much food. I just drop a meal and it's simple and away I go. So again, come maybe mid-April, I'll probably kind of start, I'd say hit a plateau, and then I'll have to actually kind of, you know, track calories to be precise enough. So, you know, try and be precise enough so that I don't lose muscle and that I'm not just guessing and winging it. Because if you do that and you make a mistake, for me, getting that lean, it's that kind of, there's a fine balance between being in too much of a deficit and starting to lose muscle and kind of just kind of chipping away at the fat. So kind of then looking at motivation strategies that I'm doing, because it's, you know, kind of what I can say all that is it's not all plain sailing. With motivation, we're motivated towards things and we're motivated away from things, and essentially comes down to pleasure and pain. So we're motivated towards pleasure and motivated away from pain. I've spoken about this before, but one of the things what we've got to focus on is that this works both ways. So it can actually stop us from doing things, i.e., if, you know, we hear about comfort zone, the pleasure of being in a comfort zone can be so good for people, essentially pleasurable, that the pain of actually making changes and changing diets and exercising more and so on and so forth, it's too painful, and the pain overrides the pleasure of any sort of results that we might get or anything like that, because we're just focused on the pain of I can't eat this or I have to do this and blah, blah, blah. And what stops a lot of people from doing is the moment that they're in that comfort zone, etc., it's pleasurable. Why would you want to move away from pleasure? And then the thoughts about progressing and making changes are actually painful for us. Now, this is stuff that is kind of subconscious for most of us, that we don't bring it to our attention as much until we're actually That's funny, Judy. You thought it was a midlife crisis. So it's yeah. So as I said, it's kind of it's important to kind of know. Is like, yes, we can kind of say, okay, I want to be motivated. Like I've just given you all my whys. They were all kind of pleasurable things, and I want to work towards that. And I kind of want to move away from kind of pain side of things as well. But we've got to kind of flip it around. And essentially, for change to happen, that we need to hit a threshold where the act of not doing, or i.e. the act of staying in your comfort zone, becomes more painful than the actual act of doing. So we've got to kind of look at, okay, what are the consequences of staying where I am right now versus going? And this is where the whole kind of, let's say, it's not necessarily delayed gratification, because you're getting gratification in a comfort zone. You're getting pleasure in a comfort zone. So there is no delayed gratification. There is, when people are staying in their comfort zone, they're getting this whole gratification from being in their comfort zone. And when we can flip that and make that really, really painful, well, then we're going to get gratification from making changes and moving away from that instantly. It's not going to be, I have to wait for this to happen. It's just like, this becomes so painful that the situation I'm in right now and the consequences of staying where I am now and not taking action and not working towards what I want to work towards becomes so basically painful. It becomes a driver for you to move away from that, and it's pleasurable to move away from that. Hence, that you're not delaying gratification. You're getting the gratification of working away from that instantly. And the thing is, we've got to realize there's always a price to pay. So whether we do or don't do something, there's always a cost to it. We're always paying a price. There is a cost of not doing anything. So kind of there is no such thing as inaction, because we're always doing something. So either I'm kind of staying where I am, and that requires action, which is just maybe kind of staying in the old same habits and stuff like that of what I was doing it, or again, there's a cost of actually kind of working towards something and kind of moving towards something. So it's really important to remember that we kind of let ourselves believe that, sure, it's grand if I blah, 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 kind of stay where I am. It's grand. I can do it again, blah, blah, blah. But there's a cost of you doing that. There's a price to pay for it. So limiting beliefs now kind of, there's a pain associated with doing, and there's a pleasure associated with not doing. So this is why people a lot of awful times struggle with achieving goals, because, as I said, the pain of associated with working towards. So these are my pains that I listed for myself with this, so that, again, is one of the things that I decided I really want to get this, so that I kind of went through this to make myself as focused, as motivated, and therefore being as consistent and disciplined as possible. So these are, again, unique to me, but you'll have your own. But health and physical issues to overcome. So physically, I've had my fair share of injuries and let's say kind of trauma to the body. So I've had, I was in 2003, I was in a motorbike accident where I got massive whiplash, was out of work for 6 months, had to get shoulder surgery. And there's residual stuff with that, kind of the certain exercises I don't do because, in terms of the challenge it puts on my body and that kind of thing. I injured my back doing something innocuous when I was 19, warming up for rugby, just warming up, nothing strenuous at all, and injured my back, busted my ankle a couple of times. What else has gone through my body? Left knee, got an issue with that and stuff like that. So the thing is by training so hard, those injuries can flare up. And I have to work really, really hard to make sure that they don't, and I have to be very smart and stuff like that. But one of the things is when you're trying to actually build muscle, it's a very demanding thing, especially in terms of the longer you've been training and stuff like that. So you have to challenge your body and kind of push yourself through. So there's this kind of balancing act that I've kind of had to work almost mentally to get over as well. That's physical issues. Health issues, I've always had recovery issues from training over the years, and I've tried many different things. I tried a lot of holistic different things. I've had like heavy metal chelation done. I've done colon cleanses. You name it. I've tried every fucking supplement under the sun. One of the biggest things I find with training with people and other people, of similar kind of age and fitness and stuff like that as me, is that I can push myself as hard as them and I can compete with them, but I'd never be able to recover and train as consistently with them. So they get busted themselves, in their 20s and, kind of whatever is doing it. But I was never able to recover as well as possible for it. So I had to manage my thing. And again, for me, it was just kind of like, well, maybe this is just me genetically, do you know what I mean? That's kind of what I have. And it's been a blessing in some ways that I've been able to, I've done so much research on how to, kind of the best ways of, kind of whether it's losing fat, gaining muscle, blah, blah, whatever it is. So much research onto nutrition, recovery, kind of injury prevention, all that kind of sort of stuff. But last January, I actually finally found out what was wrong with me. Essentially, I have a very high levels of a hormone in my body called sex hormone binding globulin. And essentially what that does is it binds to testosterone in the body, and it helps kind of regulate testosterone levels in the body. Problem is mine was off the charts. So basically I had no testosterone, usable testosterone in my body. So I found this out last January after getting had blood tests done over the years, but nobody's ever able to actually kind of spotted it. So again, it was spotted, and essentially my pituitary hormone was overworking to produce testosterone, but it was all being basically taken up by this sex hormone binding globulin, and my body had very, very low testosterone levels to use in the body. The doctor described it as the hormone levels of a 70-year-old. So I was like, so that makes sense in terms of it'll affect your recovery, ability to put on muscle and stuff like that. So energy levels, drive and stuff like that. So I've been put on medication since then, and it's taken a kind of good while, but my last kind of round of blood tests is kind of like seemed to be working. So that sex hormone binding globulin has come down quite a good bit. My essentially what's called free testosterone has risen, and which means I basically got more testosterone in my body to use. So they're kind of, again, issues that I've had in the past that I've had to overcome. So that's the pain associated with doing it, because I've had those before. It's kind of like, if I try again, and is it, these things going to act up again. A couple other things then as well, kind of going into it. I have to eat a lot. Very often I'm feeling too full. I don't want to have that fifth or sixth meal during the evening time. But again, it's kind of, if I don't have it, I'm not eating enough. I'm not going to get the results I want. The whole recovery energy side of things, that you're putting a lot into the training. I'll get fatter. That's, again, you're going to have to accept that I'm going to put on some fat during this. I've got past experiences of trying to do it or trying to gain muscle and being kind of, absolutely wiping me out, essentially. It'll affect other areas of my life, the sacrifices I have to make with it. I've got to be extremely consistent on it. There's an expensive food and supplements added to that, the amount of fucking protein yogurts and so on and so forth that I'm kind of buying, and the amount of rice I'm eating is insane. But they're essentially the pains I associated with actually trying to achieve my goal. Now, if you can imagine, if I just left it at that, or if I didn't even I wasn't even aware of all of those that were in there in my head, that, you're talking about, like, self-sabotage kicks in, because it's like, well, why the hell would I want to do all of that? Why would I want to be low in energy, have my injuries flaring up, being stuffed to the point of feeling sick? Why would I want to get fatter? All these kind of different things. So it's important, as I said, to be aware. Now, then there's the pleasure of not doing. So it's the actual kind of pleasure of, okay, staying where I am. Well, there's the comfort I spoke about earlier. It's easier not to do it, kind of takes a lot of effort to do. A big thing for me was like, does it really matter whether I weigh 95 kilos or 100 kilos or blah, 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 or whatever? The excuse of it not being possible, again, I've tried before, and so on and so forth. I've always struggled to put on weight. It's easier on the body, the injuries, and I'll stay leaner and wouldn't get fatter. So that would be the pleasure of staying in my comfort zone. So for me, with this there's a lot of more pain. Those drivers associated with doing were a lot stronger. So I'm going to show you now in a moment kind of what I've done to, let's say, kind of reframe these and overcome these. Some of them were psychological things, and then in terms of the health issues, well, taking medication and stuff like that. So there's actions to be taken to make sure that they things can improve or aren't as painful as what our perception is going to be. But what I want you to do now, and just do this yourself, you can think about it in your mind. It's better if you write it, use a pen and pad. I don't want you to share this with me or anyone. I want you to think about your own limiting beliefs, your own pain associated with doing to get the results that you're looking for, or the pleasure of not doing. Why are you staying in the comfort zone? And see if you can do it, and see if you can pick 5 pains associated with doing. So if I do this, these are the painful things that I'm going to have to endure or go through. And I want you to pick 5 pleasures associated with not doing, i.e. the pleasures of staying within your comfort zone and stuff like that. Again, I'll kind of leave mine up to kind of show you the thing. Now, again, pain associated with doing for some people, it could be time. In terms of having to manage your time and being kind of busy and stuff like that. There's lots of different things that can essentially get in our way of doing. Some of them are more psychological than others in terms of our beliefs, and then others are actually, like I said, as an actual medical issues with me. But do that. Take a few minutes, and I'm just going to go and grab a drink of water. So just take a few minutes and get 5 pains associated with doing what you want to do and achieve, and 5 pleasures you gain by not doing, by i.e. staying where you are. So work on that. I'm just going to go and grab a drink. Cool. All righty. So again, it's something that kind of to take some time doing, because some of this stuff we're not aware of until we actually kind of put it on paper and go, that's interesting. I didn't realize that was holding me back. And again, bring your awareness to it is the first kind of half the battle, because once you're awareness of it, you can then question it, you can kind of figure things out and that kind of thing. It's essentially how I eventually, after all these years, have actually found that kind of actually have a medical issue, because I kept on just trying to kind of work towards and get better, but kind of nothing was sticking. I've done, like I said, gluten-free diets and all sort of stuff, but kind of turns out my hormones were all over the place. Overcoming then these limiting beliefs, and again, this is what I've done in terms of trying to kind of turn them around and rephrase them. So this is essentially what we should focus on, rather than putting our focus on, I can't do this, I'm going to have to give up all this food and blah blah blah, because that's the way to keep you where you are. That's the motivating way to keep you stuck and kind of that in that kind of sense. We're always motivating ourselves. It's just we're really good at motivating ourselves to do the stuff that doesn't actually kind of bring us closer to the ultimate goals that we want. We motivate ourselves to, sit in the couch and not do the exercise, or sit in the couch and eat the nice food and blah, blah, blah. So this is basically essentially, so for me, around the injury side of things and the pain in my body and stuff like that, that was a combination of traumas that have happened to me, but also then in terms of the hormonal issues and stuff like that were actually playing a part in this. So one of the things is the injuries and pain is essentially kind of like for me to accept that they're always going to be there, kind of no matter what. There's going to be residual stuff there because I've had so much crap happen to me. But I'll give you an example. A couple of weeks ago, I woke up with a creak in my neck, from sleeping. I didn't do anything. It wasn't from training. It wasn't from, you know what I mean? So I was like, we're always going to have niggles and these kind of things. So using that as an excuse not to push myself is kind of, again, I've had to kind of, flip it around and kind of go, and it's like, one, the stronger I am, the more I'm training and stuff like that, the more resilient I will be to, to kind of, being in pain or getting injured or whatever. But it's a great quote. It's from I think it might be from Roosevelt. It might be Benjamin Franklin, but the quote saying that you're either going to rust out or you're going to wear out. You're either going to rust out or wear out. Now that, for me, that really resonated with me. Like, essentially 2003, almost 20 years ago, I was in this motorbike accident and I woke up the next day in a world of pain with no broken bones. Like, but it was like, I couldn't move. I was walking around like a robot. And I was out of work for 6 months. But so again, like for me, it's like, okay, well, if I don't do anything, I'm just going to get stiff and sore and blah, blah, blah. But if I do something, yes, I might feel niggles and pain, from training and pushing myself and stuff like that. But at least I'm going to actually wear myself out as opposed to just sit around doing nothing. That makes sense. That's, again, for me to overcome my limiting beliefs on that and to change around kind of my perception on injuries and pain in my body. Now, planning the fat loss phase, just in terms of, the idea of I'm getting a bit, kind of putting on a bit of fat around my midsection over the last kind of 6-7 weeks. I know I can lose it. I've planned the fat loss phase. I've mapped it out over the 13 weeks. It's like, it's not an issue. I can do it. I can chip away at it, and it's not going to be an issue. The energy recovery side of things. So again, my hormones are better. I'm getting blood tests. It's kind of showing me my hormones are better. I'm on medication. I'm feeling better. So again, that side of things is obviously positive. That's a kind of practical thing that I've done, where some of the other things are a bit more, let's say, psychological in terms of the rust out or wear out. The fact it's going to be hard and affects other areas of my life. Phase 1, which is probably going to be the hardest up until the last few weeks, maybe of phase 2. It's only short term. It's an end date of March the 1st. I've got to stuff myself silly as I'm going to go through it. I've got to train hard and stuff like that. But again, there's an end date and I'm working towards it. I'm very close to March the 1st. And then eating as well is something that's kind of again, a tough thing, but to kind of make it really simple for me is I'm just eating the same foods over and over and over and over again, so I don't have to think and plan huge amounts. So essentially, a couple of my go-to things to help make this easier on me is I have the microwavable bags of rice. I have one of them with my lunch every day, and it's just simple. You just microwave it, and it's 400 calories of rice, boom. On top of some protein source with a sauce and vegetables and that kind of thing as well. So for my breakfast, this will probably surprise a lot of people. Actually, here we go. Have a guess what I'm having for breakfast. Type it into the chat box. Have a guess what I'm eating for breakfast. I knew that would come up. Nope. Steak, eggs, oats, full fry. No. I eat peanut butter and jam sandwiches. The reason why, and protein shake. So the exactly. Well, that's one of the things. Is like the beauty about doing this. Now, here's the thing. So I'm eating lots, like about 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. Like the sandwiches are literally dripping. They are extremely calorific. You got your 2 slices of bread are roughly kind of 120 calories, so I'm buying high calorie bread, so 100, 120 calories each. You know, an obscene amount of peanut butter on it, and lots of jam and stuff like that, and then a protein shake to wash it down. So I started off with 1, but I'm up to 2 now. Again, as I'm going through it, I've had to gradually increase my calories, because the more weight I'm putting on, essentially, is my metabolism is actually going up, so I need to eat more to gain more. So I'm on 2 now. But the beauty about it is, when I start going into my fat loss phase, all I've got to do is at one stage take one of those sandwiches out, and I'm still having a yummy peanut butter and jam sandwich for breakfast as I'm going through it. But again, it's like I'm literally eating that same breakfast over and over and over again. And yes, it gets a bit kind of boring and repetitive and stuff like that, but it keeps things very, very simple. So that's basically my turnarounds. So what I want you to do is pick one of your pains that you've done, one of your pleasures that you've done, and just try and turn it around, or try and come up with a way around it, essentially. Okay, so whether that's you know, a practical way around it, like, you know, my microwave rice, or the fact that I've kind of finally gone to a doctor that kind of has been able to kind of discover this with me, or it could be psychological, like the rust out or wear out kind of type of thing, kind of, you know, that thing. So pick one of your pains and one of your pleasures and turn it around so that it's not painful anymore. And the pleasure, essentially the pain becomes, you're trying to kind of get it towards nullify the pain of it, or maybe you make it pleasurable and get the pleasure and turn it maybe into a kind of more of a negative side. Harry's Nut Butter from Fun Valley Stables. I have to look into that, David. Thank you. Oh, here we go. That'd last me about 2 days, though. That's the problem. Oh, Trish is a lover of Harry's as well. Never heard of it. With fresh raspberries on top. Interesting, Tricia. Interesting. Cool. Okay, so again, obviously long term, to go through your pains and pleasures and stuff like that, and to try and kind of, again, kind of come up with ways where you're kind of negating them. And again, this can come, an awful lot of it comes into the self-sabotage type of things, whereas people really have a deep desire and they have their why, you know, I do want to be fitter, I do want to lose weight, I do want to X, Y, or Z, yet they kind of seem to start and stop and start and stop and start and stop. And a lot of the times is that there's too much pain associated with change. And too much, as I said, of that, you know, it's much easier to stay in that comfort zone initially. So the price of not doing it, and I've kind of, you know, capitalized now. And again, this is for me, is like, again, it's like part of my kind of thing was like, does it really matter? You know, in terms of, well, you know, I don't have to work this hard. I'm in relatively good nick, you know, and so on and so forth. You know, that essentially I'm really, you know, doing this for me. But I'm only 41, so, you know, I don't want to kind of, let's say, kind of regret it, that it's a kind of a big milestone that I can kind of, you know, again, do something for it. The medication is working now, and it might not always work, or it might not always work as well. So the fact that my body is in a kind of a state where it can actually do the training and recover, most importantly, from the training without leaving me feeling like I'm absolutely wiped out. And, you know, there were times, you know, over the years where I've like literally just had to kind of stay in bed for a whole day or whatever like that, because I'm kind of so wiped. It would give me no focus or purpose, lack of direction. I'd be lacking that. And one of the things is the reason I did this for this lockdown is the last lockdown hit me really hard in terms of mental health wise. It was a really tough one for me. And one of the big things is two main things that are getting me through this lockdown is one, the 21-day blitz. is that gives me a focus in terms of to help you guys and to kind of the interaction I've been having and doing these workshops and stuff like that gives me a good sense of purpose. And then obviously then for myself to do the training and stuff like that and seeing my weight go up and kind of making the progress that I've been making. And then I've now told you, so now I've got even more of a price to pay. So I'm going to be asking everyone, John's how, especially on the fat loss phase, like, John, how's it going? How's it going? So the other thing that I kind of looked at as well is what could go wrong. So again, this is back kind of, kind of started January when I was doing this, but it's important to basically realize that things are going to go wrong. It's not going to be always plain sailing. I gave you an example of it not working now in a minute. There, in terms of for me, as I could easily injure myself, and lo and behold, I woke up one morning from sleeping the wrong way or whatever like that, and I had a really kind of neck issue for a couple of days. But again, so I was able to work it out and stuff like that. But what could go wrong? I could miss sessions more than likely over the course of the 8-week phase at the moment versus the 13 that I'm going to do miss exercise sessions. So I needed to kind of make sure that I have plans in place, and kind of be aware that that's going to happen, and to not think that I've missed one session, that means I'm going to give up. A lot of times people will, use the term, I fell off the wagon, or, I'm trying to get back on track now, these type of things. And the way I like to call it is, you had a wobble. So like, if you imagine you're a tightrope walker, you had a wobble, but it doesn't mean you fell off, and you don't have to jump off, and you don't, you know what I mean? You don't have to give it up all. It's like if you kind of get your phone and you drop it on the ground and you crack the screen a little bit, you don't then just smash the living daylights out of it. Well, the phone's screwed. So it's the same with your missions and goals and stuff like that, and kind of things that you're working towards, that if you do have a bad day, and kind of there's been days where I haven't eaten enough. There's been days when I've missed sessions and stuff like that. But again, it's kind of like the whole kind of to be accepted of that. Life gets in the way. So Kira's been having car trouble, which means that then we've only got one car. So, kind of had to, let's say, kind of sacrifice training sessions to kind of, be here so we can kind of, do things with Logan and that kind of thing. And then Logan's sleep patterns as well. So that could, kind of very affect my sleep, obviously, as well. So it means I've had to be very diligent on my sleep patterns to try and kind of negate some of his, for want of a better word, kind of explanation. But just to show you kind of what could go wrong. So these, basically the first column here, we got my pointer, is the 4th of January this year. And I was 95.6 kilos, 12.3% body fat, 48.7. Following week, 48.7 muscle mass. Following week, gained a little bit of weight. I'm kind of okay. Muscle mass stayed the same. Following week, lost weight. Muscle mass stayed the same. This isn't really the progress I wanted to make when I first started off doing it. The following week, I lost muscle mass drastically down below to where from I started, and my body fat percentage went up a huge amount. Now, again, as my goal was 100 kilos, under 15% body fat. So what the thing is, I got to realize is this is the 25th of January. It's not the 1st of March. That's the first thing, that, my goal is the 1st of March. So I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater after a couple of weeks here. Also then is my weight was going up. So that was important. Again, I wanted to get 100 kilos. So my weight was going up. And one of the things is, especially with trying to gain weight, is there's a lot of, I speak about a lot, the fluid dynamics, fluid balance in the body. So in terms of the amount of carbohydrate in eating and water and drinking and stuff like that, I got to get that right, because that really does show up a lot on the, let's say, the muscle mass on the in-body. That if I don't drink enough water or whatever like that, is, that could be the potential of kind of this blip here. And sure enough, I was able to tweak and adjust going along. And then, by the 1st of February, I gained 2 kilos of weight. My muscle mass was up. My body fat was at a kind of relatively good level and that kind of thing. So in terms of, it not working, is oftentimes is, kind of, we're almost looking for instant results. And if we don't feel like it's working, it's like, shit, this isn't working, I'm going to stop. And, we kind of bounce around from one thing to another. And as I say, so it's important to kind of like, for me is that consistency is, it's not like, one, I could definitely see myself, kind of getting bigger, over the course of these times. I could see the scale weight going up, and not to kind of, let's say, pay too much attention on this kind of things, because as I said, there's a lot of variables that could influence that. But especially since I'm trying to gain weight, and I start to kind of start to lose it one week, you know, you can kind of almost get disheartened and kind of go, but hang on, I've trained this hard, I've eaten this amount of food, blah, blah, blah. But again, it's only 1 week, it's only one measurement. And the reverse is very true in terms as well, is that some weeks, no matter how good a week we have in terms of exercise and nutrition, is that we might not lose weight. But it doesn't mean that that week didn't work or didn't have a benefit, which will have a knock-on effect. And as I said, I'm now 99.3 kilos, over 50 kilos of muscle mass, and I'm 13.8% body fat. So I'm, you know, kind of very close, very nearly there at my goal. But I would never have gotten there if I'd looked at this and go, screw this, isn't working. Sure, I've lost fucking muscle and less muscle than I did at the start, you know, and kind of gave up too early. So that's important in terms of consistency wise, is like consistency is going to, you know, in a lot of cases, trump, you know, anything. As long as you stay consistent and keep going, and you are noticing certain changes, no matter how small they are, that's the kind of key to keep going. So yeah, so as I said, it's kind of, I wanted to share that with you again to show you kind of my thinking philosophy in terms of how I've gone about kind of working towards a goal, and obviously it's, you know, kind of fitness, exercise, kind of health related. If you guys have any questions, you want me to go over anything, let me know, and including the fasting. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen here. Did you find that useful? Cool, awesome. The other thing, what I do is, just that last one as well, is like what could go wrong. Is for you is kind of like come up with what normally goes wrong or what has gone wrong with you before. Do you know what I mean? In terms of working towards goals and that kind of thing. Are there injuries? Are there you know, possibilities of these things? So again, it's if you know these things can get in your way, then you can put things in place to prevent them from happening or happening as much. So as I said, I'm doing a lot of joint mobility work and stuff like that to help me with especially my left shoulder that I've had surgery on. So, you know, to keep that going, because I'm pushing it and challenging it and testing it quite a lot during the week. Yeah, as I said, so it's kind of like, these are the things you got to make sure is like you're preempting stuff that could potentially derail you or give you one of those wobbles. But if we can kind of, as I said, minimize the wobbles and get ourselves back on track, or know, do you know what I mean, that we can get ourselves back on track, it's much easier then to keep working towards and getting better results, because the better results come from the consistency of doing it. So that's a good one. So again, sustaining the motivation, Tricia. So it's kind of, it's that, let's say kind of the pain pleasure side of things. Is motivation is an emotion as well. So it's going to go up and down. So on the days where the motivation doesn't feel as high, it's important to have the kind of routine of where you're going, well, this is just, you know what I mean? So some of the mornings, you know, 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm making these sandwiches and going, God, you know, even just, you know, at the moment it's like, oh, I just have one today. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, because I do feel very, very stuffed and full after it. And, you know, and again, it's just like, I know it sounds weird, the motivation to eat, but like, do you know what I mean? That's the point I'm at the moment. But it's kind of like, no, I said March the 1st. Do you know what I mean? I've given myself a specific end date. So, you know, it's getting that harder until, you know, I mean, I get there. But you don't even need to fake it. That's just coming into more of a kind of like, it's discipline. Do you know what I mean? It's like I'm in a routine and I just stick with that discipline as much as possible. There are days when I don't, do you know what I mean? It's like Kira's carbs in the garage at the start of last week, so I couldn't go and train in the gym. And, you know, so again, it's like I just missed training sessions. So I kind of slightly tweaked my training sessions for the week to make them kind of effective and a little bit longer, the ones that I did. But, do you know what I mean? Is, you know, it was a wobble, but it doesn't mean that I've absolutely destroyed. And in fact, so I only trained 2 days last week out of the 4 that I'm normally doing. And I lost body fat percentage, gained more muscle than I had in the last couple of weeks and stuff like that as well. So like, these are things, it's kind of like, you think that, oh, I've had a bad week last week because I missed my training and, you know, those kind of things. Yet I actually did then hop on the scales and like, oh, wow, I got really good results from last week. So again, it goes to show that a lot of our times, a lot of the things that we're thinking are I'm falling off track or I'm wobbling, they're not that, they don't have as much of an impact as we give them credit for. if that makes sense. And that's what I say, is that the kind of consistency of it. But you do need the discipline of having a specific routine that you can kind of fall back into. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of, it almost becomes automated. So like, you know, kind of that you don't have to G yourself up and rile yourself up. And I suppose kind of like one of the things that say, Karen, you told me that, you know, kind of having the Zoom sessions each week is, you know, kind of really helpful for you, because it's just like you book in, you're there, you show up. Do you know what I mean? And it's just, you get into the routine of showing up, whether you feel like it or not. If you just show up, you're going to get it. Relatively decent workout in, and you know what I mean? That's the discipline side of things. Whereas other days you're kind of like, oh yeah, I really could do with a workout today because I've had a tough day of work and I just want to burn off some energy and stress and blah blah blah, stuff like that. And we all have days where we feel great and we want to train and want it, but there's other days as well where we're kind of like, oh my god, I've got to actually start this, and oh geez, you know, kind of type of thing. So that's where the discipline comes in, that we can't be looking for motivation. So potentially for you, Tricia, one of your obstacles might be, you know, that you're looking for motivation the whole time. Do you know what I mean? So it's like you're trying to sustain this motivation, but that's like trying to be happy the whole time. Do you know what I mean? Or excited the whole time. It's only one emotion. Do you know what I mean? That kind of feeling of motivation and drive, it's not consistent. It's not something. And so I wanted to share with you there is like that I've had lots of, you know, kind of times during these 8 weeks, but also then over the years where my motivation, there's no motivation. You know what I mean? Like my body is beat up and, you know, those kind of things. So it's the discipline of, you know, keep going, that we can't, there are no, you know, kind of, no matter what it looks from the outside, that there are no these, you know, kind of rah, super motivated, so positive, you know, all the time. Because that's not how the brain works. You know what I mean? The brain kind of goes in waves in terms of emotions and stuff like that. So maybe they said that's something to kind of work on. It's like, okay, so like, you know, one of your kind of things is, well, I need to be motivated all the time. So it's the pain of not being motivated. Well, can you turn that around? No worries, Ursula. You're very, very welcome. I feel better already because I haven't even thought about it. So I feel better. My tummy's not as bad as it was when we started. So thank you. You guys have distracted me. So it's all good. See you later, Ursula. Cool. So does anybody have any questions on the 21 days either, you know, that they're kind of doing in terms of the fasting side of things, the low carb side of things, or anything? You know, good. I don't think there's any new ones here, but for those of you as well, I'm recording this obviously. So for those of you watching it back, if you do have specific questions on any about 21 days, just reply to the email and let me know, and we'll kind of go through, because it's important just to kind of make sure you understand the kind of fasting protocol and stuff like that to get that, and that you're going okay on your low carb. That's it. Thank you for joining me this evening. Thank you for letting me share that as well. And I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. Turn on your mics and say
Thanks,
bye.
John.
Hello.
Thanks,
No
John.
worries.
Thanks, Sean. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye.
See you soon. Bye.
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 Bye. Bye.